everyone, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations. We have a very interesting show for you today. Being Nevada has been a gambling state since March 19th, 1931, I think it is fascinating, the workings of the older slot machines, because they are chock full of gears and levers. And our guest today happens to be a mechanic and collector of vintage pinball machines, as you can see, and slot machines. And he is very knowledgeable about maintaining them and making them work again. Welcome to Psychic Creations, the awesome Alan Marriage. Welcome, welcome. Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions here that we are in his garage with all of these vintage, wonderful vintage machines. But I wanted to ask you, are you originally from Carson City?
Oh yeah, born and raised, yeah.
Born and raised
Yeah.
here. Oh, how fun is that? I like that idea. Don't get too many people that are born and raised here. They're all displaced Californians like me.
Yeah, my dad came from Caliente and Pioche and all that area and moved here in the early 30s, 1934. That's when this house was built.
Your house? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
And you had that moved from the middle of Carson.
Yeah, it was right near the Capitol because my grandfather took a job as state librarian from 1935 to 50. So he could just walk across the street.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Well, this house is awesome. I have to admit that. Been through it. Love it. Well, what made you interested in vintage slot machines and pinball machines?
Oh, I've been interested in mechanical stuff since I was a kid, but this slot machine, this one over here, was one that was in my family. My dad loaned a guy some money back in around 1952 and took that as collateral. So that guy never came back, so I ended up, well, you know, it ended up in the family.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, stuff like that always interested me, anything mechanical, yeah.
Nice.
And then, of course, slot machines, when you're a kid and you're not allowed to play, well, that adds a little more to it, you know. Oh, yeah, I want to, you know.
Well, sure, the mystery of it. Oh my gosh. Well, did you just learn how to fix them and maintain them on your own, or did you go to class?
Well, no, I you know, having that one since I was a kid and playing with it, I had a feel for it. And then I worked in bowling, which is, you know, very mechanical, all that pin setters and all that. And that's when I was introduced to these gambling pinball games. And
Gambling pinball machines?
Yeah, I'll explain that as we go along.
Okay.
Yeah, I just saw the inside of those and said, oh, I got to learn that. So then I went to the Salvation Army and bought one of those puck bowlers. It's about 8 feet long, you know, and fiddled with it. And then I contacted a guy that was in the business that ran these things and ended up going to work for him. He taught me all the stuff, but I picked it up fast, you know, because I'm into that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I worked with him for off and on for 30-some years until he passed away.
Is that right?
Yeah, he was well known over in the Reno Ace, well, General Coin Machine Company. He ran he specialized in these pin games, and he did all the modifications to make them run right, you know.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that sounds like a fascinating journey to learn all of those.
Oh yeah.
I like that. Well, let's see. Well, and where was the first machine that you worked on?
Oh, that one over there, that's
okay.
the one that was in the family, this solid mechanical over there.
Uh-huh.
That was made in 1948.
4080. Wow, we'll take pictures of that and show you.
And then as a kid, you know, when people weren't looking, I'd always sneak coins into slot machines and markets and restaurants and bars. And
Well, yeah.
like the Overland down there in Gardnerville, you know, when it get full of people and they weren't watching, I'd sneak over there.
Did you win any big
Well,
jackpots?
a few here and there, you know, if you won $5 when you were, you know, 9, 10, 11 years old, that was just, wow, big money. You know?
Well, it was.
Yeah.
It probably still is.
Yeah.
How
Well, yeah, all
fun.
these games, these machines were on nickel, and now you laugh at a big jackpot being $10, you know, it's like,
Well, sure.
yeah, nowadays, but back then, you know, it was different.
That was nice money back then.
Yeah.
Sure it was. Well, now, Alan, could you show us the insides and the mechanisms and how things are working?
Well, yeah, the best thing is to understand about slot machines is there's kind of 3 levels in the history. The original mechanical machines were all mechanical.
Okay.
There was no electricity plugged into them. They have a coin tube in there, but it limited them to allowing only 20 coins to come out. So in any casino environment, if you had a $10 jackpot, the machine would spit 20 coins out, and then the attendant would have to come around and pay you the rest.
Okay.
So then the next phase was electromechanical, which are these Valley machines, where they added an electrical payout unit, which allowed them to pay 200-300 coins by itself, and
Oh.
all different combinations. And of course, then in the 80s, the electronic machines came along.
Okay.
And with those machines, originally when they first came out, they actually had handles on them because people were used to that.
Right, sure.
Yeah, so, but the handle didn't actually move any mechanism. All it was a spring-loaded handle with a switch on it, because the machine is completely electronic. There's no moving parts.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and then eventually people got used to not seeing the handles, and they slowly disappeared. So now you can never see anything like that, you know.
Except in your
Yeah.
beautiful garage.
Yeah. I'm not really a collector. I just kept the machines that I remember as a kid or that I found particularly interesting. Because if I was a collector of these things, this place would be full.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
And anything with a TV screen I had absolutely no interest in, you know.
Really?
Nah,
Okay.
that stuff is, you know, the tubes, and I'll crush all that stuff.
I get that. Well, can you show our viewers how you maintain a slot machine?
Now when collectors or people that are enthusiasts in slot machines collect stuff for the interesting artwork or some, you know, various characteristics like that. But operators in casinos were only interested in making money. So if they put out a machine that was beautiful, hey, they did a nice job designing that. That didn't really matter to them. It's whether or not at the end of the week there was any money in it. And if there wasn't, they would take, consistently, people just didn't take to some machines, who knows why.
Okay.
And then they would take those machines into the shop and disassemble them and convert them to known money makers. So there was a whole industry for, you know, custom artwork and stuff. And then they'd have to redo the circuitry here to accommodate the machine. It's kind of,
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
yeah, see, these all,
Oh,
see, that's
look at
the-
that.
this is electromechanical. See, these hoppers allowed them to fill up with money and dispense, you know, the machine could pay all the jackpots except really big ones.
Oh, be
But see,
darned.
these were still had mechanical, yeah, see, we got,
Oh, look at this.
yeah. See, these were still all mechanical. Look at the underside.
I'll be darned, would you look at that? Interesting.
And they all required lubed and,
Oh, gosh, yeah.
well, they call these electromechanical because they added all these electrics. I don't know if you can see that, but you see these discs, how there's different depths of slots in there?
Okay.
Yeah, so if it landed somewhere electrically, it would know what's showing out here. That happens to be an orange. So on the electric row, it'd be like the fifth one over. So if you hit 3 oranges, 4 oranges, or whatever, these would all line up, and then the circuit would be made all the way through and tell it to pay. But see, these were still, the mechanisms were still all mechanical. Yeah, see that wherever that lands, it has, you know, has a little clock that regulates the spin. Whoops. Yeah.
Isn't
one
that
more.
interesting?
Yeah, see the clock running down here.
Yeah.
Stop the clock and then you could just line up anything you wanted.
Oh,
That's how you
okay.
test for pays, you know, that I'll just line up 3 sevens.
okay.
So then you check over here and that's all on the same row. That would complete the circuit to make it pay. And I want to show you this. This is from the modern electronic machines. When you pull the handle or push the button, none of this does anything. The actual circuit board in the machine decides the game. You hit the button and it decides the game. And the reels are simply hooked to this servo motor, which is this. And so it's more or less just a display. It's not even, you're not spinning any reels like this. Once the game's decided electronically, it just goes out and tells the reels where to stop. It's not even, it's just a display more or less.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
Okay.
but to the player, it looks like you're pulling the handle or hitting the button, and the reels are spinning and they're landing on a random thing. No, a circuit's computer's decided the game already, and it just tells these servo motors where to put the reels to show the player what they got.
Oh, isn't
That's
that
all it was,
interesting?
yeah. So
Interesting.
people didn't know that, it seemed like,
Sure.
yeah.
Oh, well, that's very
But
interesting.
yeah, all of this stuff required lubrication. And the electronic machines, they're not without problems. I never really worked on them, so I couldn't give you any information. But you know, they have error codes, and it'll tell you what's wrong. Mostly coin jams, and
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Interesting, okay.
there's other things. Somebody that works on those could tell you more. But
Oh, how interesting.
yeah,
Oh, I
this was
love
just
that.
my era, and I just didn't even care about the other stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a short-lived machine from the early 60s where they took an earlier reel mech. That was made in Reno, Nevada by Niels Bellamatic. And then this cabinet was made locally somewhere in Sparks. I found a tag somewhere. But the idea was to convert the mechanical machines and give them an electronic payout to compete with Bally. But it wasn't enough. It was too little, too late, or whatever you'd call it. Yeah, this one doesn't have any coin in or out, so I just made it so you can just pull the handle.
Sure.
Yeah.
And was this part of, what did you mentioned the man Cy something?
Well, Cy Red was the head of Bally Distributing in Reno for quite a few years. And then he went off to form IGT, which is now, you know, the place.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
sure. Oh, that's interesting. Did you ever have a bell? What was his name, the maker?
Oh,
of the
Marshall
bell?
Fay, Liberty Bell.
Fay.
Well, Charles Fay was his grandfather, yeah.
Did you ever see or work on any of those?
I didn't work on any of his stuff, but he had the Liberty Bell, and you know, it's where the convention center is now, but that bar was there for years and years, the Liberty Bell. Yeah, there's a whole story behind that place too, but
Oh, fun.
he had them on display in there, and then when that closed, he got bought out, you know, by the city or whatever,
Sure.
whatever that was. Well, he went to the Nevada State Museum and he set up a display there. We went and saw him there doing a book signing. Because I did a video on how to work on these slots, and I contacted Marshall Fay because I was going to give a plug for his book because he's written several books. He goes, oh, I don't know if I want to be involved in that. And I said, well, so I sent him the portion of the video, and he really liked it. He goes, oh yeah, go ahead and mention it. And then we got acquainted, and he gave me a book and signed it.
Oh, fun.
But yeah, no, I never saw anything or touched anything that old.
Oh.
He knew how to do it anyway. He was definitely a qualified slot machine.
Oh,
technician.
sure.
See, all of these, when they came out, you know, they allowed you to put multiple coins in.
Oh, sure,
Diagonal lines and you know, this one.
Oh, that's right. There was like 5, you could put in
Yeah.
5 coins.
Yeah. Hey, that's one.
Oh, you just pointed
This
right
one
at-
was an example of a beautiful machine. They did this medalist, you know, based on the Olympics. And
Okay.
it's a 5-reel thing, and you put 3 coins in, and you're playing 3 different games at the same time. You got
Oh.
these 3 reels and 1, 2, 3, those 3 reels, so they're all in play.
Oh, how interesting.
But they put this machine out, and it just people didn't take to it.
Oh.
But I always liked it, that's why I kept it. That one I might sell because it's interesting, but you know, you can get too much interesting stuff in your life, and you're bogged down with all that stuff,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. Oh.
These were the first earlier ones, these 2 here. These were the first ones, 1964, 1965.
Oh, really? Okay.
Single coin machines that,
Well, you just.
yeah, and
really
as, you know, as the years went on, they just kept adding features to them, you know, like these 5 reels and all these crisscross. And, yeah, it was an evolution process.
Oh my gosh, isn't this fun?
But at this time, through the 60s till 1980, Valley dominated the slot machine. That was all you saw.
Really?
When I was a
Okay.
kid, these mechanical machines were in places, and then they disappeared, and they were all Valley until the early 80s, and then the electronic and video poker and stuff started filtering in.
Okay, oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I collected a lot of this, that, you know, these places that, most of these are long gone. King's
Yeah.
Castle,
Uh-huh,
yeah, the Overland, that's been gone for years.
Isn't that-
Money Tree, that's gone.
uh-huh,
Harrah's Reno's gone as far as the casino goes.
sure.
Yeah. Barney's, yeah.
You like to collect awesome things.
This
And
was,
those
yeah,
are all the plate
this
glasses?
was one of the, yeah, these are just these glasses here.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
J&J Novelty, that was where I first worked on slot machines.
Oh, isn't that?
They had slot
cool?
machines all over Reno and Carson back in those days.
Okay,
But then when IGT came along, they pretty much got rid of all the small operators because they just made more and more gaming regulations where a small business couldn't comply with all that stuff.
okay, sure.
Yeah, so big business was really for more regulation because it put their
Yeah.
competitors out of business. Yeah, there were lots and lots of these from the, you know, the first Liberty Bell, like 1890, I don't remember all the way up until, this one's 1948. And they were all solid mechanicals until the early 60s, 1964, when Valley introduced the electromechanical one. But
Okay.
yeah, I just put a coin in and see that everything's solid mechanical. You're actually, these things are hard to pull. Those little old ladies had strong arms.
Oh, look at that. An orange
Some of them had a
abalone.
jackpot unit, so this would fill up with nickels, and if you hit the jackpot, it would open a little gate and all the money would come rolling down to here. But then they were problematical, so they just they blanked them out and then just made it for hand pay.
Oh,
Because
okay.
those things they had the coins come along here so they could tell, you know, if somebody walking through a casino would glance over at the machines and see that they're putting real nickels in. So if they looked over and saw slugs going along here or something, then you're out of here.
Well, sure. Isn't
But
that
yeah, this
interesting?
was the one that was left with my family, so
Oh,
it's
isn't
the
that
first one I ever
beautiful?
did anything with.
Now, have you won big jackpots on that?
I think I hit it once. In all these years.
Awesome. Okay.
I'll put one more in.
Oh,
Hey, there's a winner. 10 coins.
well, look at that.
But these machines were actually really tight.
Okay.
In those days, you know, when they said it one-armed bandits, they really were, because they couldn't, nowadays, you know, you can afford to pay out all this big stuff, you know, but back then, you know, they were pretty tight.
Well, sure.
And then the operators would cheat too.
Oh.
Yeah, on the reels themselves, they put what they call gaffs on there. So that when it's spinning, there's a clock that runs, and that's what 1, 2, 3 stops the reels. Well, they just plug some of the indentations on the actual reel to prevent it from being able to stop on certain combinations.
Oh, no.
So you couldn't hit the jackpot, yeah. Most people knew about these, but hardly anybody, unless you grew up in Nevada, in other states too, but in other states these would only be in bars, and they were illegal basically because they're gambling games.
Oh, okay.
But they're an entirely different game. They were gambling because there's an element of random inside the head, just like a slot machine. So the idea is to put coins in to boost your chances of winning. But you're not guaranteed anything for the coins. Like a slot machine, you put in a coin and you don't get anything.
Oh,
Yeah, so
interesting.
a lot of states were always trying to redefine these and get rid of them because they were illegal.
Oh, isn't that something?
Yeah, so in other states besides Nevada, now in Nevada they had payout units on them, they're totally legal. And you'd see these in the bowls and the bars, and even the casinos would have a long row of them. I remember the Prima Donna had about a dozen of these things.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, how fun.
But in other states, California had tons of these, and all the states, Ohio, and they were all constantly trying to pass laws to define the difference between these amusement machines and gambling machines. New York City just got rid of them altogether. And
Really?
outlawed them completely.
Okay.
But, yeah, that's how they gambled, because there's a meter here and you rack up so many replays.
Okay,
Yeah, basically, you can't really see that, but that's a real early one. It's based on bingo. And you have 25 numbers, and the idea is to line 3 up and line 3, 4, or 5 up.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to get a picture of that.
But what would happen in the states where it's not legal is if you were an authority, like a cop or somebody, they would pay, or if you were just an average guy, they'd pay you a coin for each of the replays you had.
Oh.
So if you ran up 200 coins, you had $10 coming. But if you were an authority or a cop or somebody, no, it's for amusement only. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
They sold these machines with signs you could put up for amusement only, no prizes permitted. You got 5 balls to try to line up 3, 4, or 5 in a row.
Okay.
But you only get 4 credits for 3 and 16 for 4 and 75 for 5. So the idea is to put more coins in. See, now you get paid a little more for if you get, and you continue to put coins in here until you boosted all these odds and features. Yeah, so this is the gambling part of it. See, I'm still actually getting something for my money here.
Oh, isn't
But
that
see, there's one, I didn't get
fun?
anything for that. So that's why they considered them to be gambling, because you're not guaranteed anything.
Okay.
These flipper games, you put in a quarter, you get a game, and
Okay.
you play it, and that's
Right.
it. And you can win free games. And that was the idea behind this, was replays. But on these games, the replays would be paid out in cash, so they considered that. But they were worried about these things all over the place. These things were all over the world, too.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
I had a guy from Iran looking for one of these. He remembered playing them over there.
Oh, interesting.
And all the military guys knew them, because these were on all the military bases.
Were they?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you talk to anybody that was in the Army, Navy, especially Navy back in the 50s,
Okay.
they all played these. See, now I just put a bunch, I put in probably maybe $50. Now I can shoot the game, I got 5 balls. These machines made money. We had some over at that Silver Club back in the 80s over in Sparks that were making $1,000 a week.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, just off nickels. Yeah, before computers, logic was done by stepper units back in the 50s. And when you hear about those computers filling up entire buildings, it was because it was full of steppers and relays and things that now are accomplished through, microchips.
Okay. Goodness
Yeah,
sakes,
this
look
is
at
what
all
drew
that.
me to these. The guy came at the bowl I was working at, and I learned I didn't even learn to play these until I was in my 20s, but when he opened the back of it, I said, oh, I gotta get me one of those, that looks interesting. Or, other people would open the door and run from it,
Well, sure. Oh,
But yeah,
my
let me see it
God.
without moving out of the way, I can set it up. See, this up here is real similar to a slot machine. You've got 4 discs that randomly land in different spots.
And it's okay, but it's cool.
Yes, it is.
Look at that.
Yeah, watch this wiper here, that's one that,
Look
yeah,
at
goes
that.
around
That's
on a
interesting.
specific spot. And where that ends up having to land is what'll come up.
Okay, that's
Now,
very
see if I
interesting.
manually do this thing if I can. Yeah, it just lets that spin.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, and all these things, these are all switches here, and all that stuff had to be, these switches had to be assembled and stacked and soldered by hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
And women did all that stuff.
They
That was what's
did?
funny about these machines, is they were designed by men, built by women, and then predominantly played by men. Yeah, they sat and wired all this stuff.
That was great.
Yeah, the way they did it is they had a big board with all these pins laid out, and then run all these wires around, then they tie them all together into these bundles, and then it's just amazing they were able to do it. You go to fix something like this and it takes you all day just to stack one group of switches if one of the blades break off or something, you know, and you thought, God, these people sat there doing this stuff all day long. See, I can just time the machine out by taking this all the way out.
Okay.
I had the last bit of paperwork for this too. I donated it to this guy that runs a website for these machines and a museum also. But I have the original factory blueprints that they used. I had them all. I gave them away to the, you know, just people to share. But I have all the diagrams for these.
Look at that. Isn't that diagrams? Oh my gosh. It must be 50,000 pages of
Well,
diagrams.
it's about this long.
Oh, only that long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine having to work on something like this? Goodness sakes.
I like anything electrical, you just work on one thing at a time.
Sure.
You know, you got one circuit, you ignore all the hundreds of other things.
Oh, well, sure.
Yeah, you're doing one thing and you just, like on the diagram, you follow that one thing around until you've
Oh, okay.
solved it.
Sure. Oh, goodness.
Like for
sakes,
instance, if something wasn't lighting out on the board,
Uh-huh.
you'd go to where the light bulb is on the diagram and find out what turns on the light, and then you go to that and then work your way down. Say, oh, the relay that clicks in to
The
turn on the
easiest
light
way.
is
Yeah.
not pulling in, and you find out what controls the relay. Why isn't it pulling in? It's just,
Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but you, that's how you'd have to work me. I'd look at that and run.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, see, these were the 60s, and the early 60s and 50s had their own smell. And I think it's all had to do with the insulation of the wiring and stuff. And so you get into a 70s machine, it has a different smell.
does it?
So if I walked into a shop and somebody's working on a 70s machine, it's got the 70s smell.
Uh-huh. And
Instead
that's real
of-
distinctive.
Yeah, it's because of the wiring, the plastic wiring. See, these are all cloth-covered insulation.
Okay. And it smells very strange.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it just smells
Yeah,
very
that's all.
strange.
It's the wiring.
Isn't
Yeah.
that something?
You'd think after 60 years that they wouldn't smell anymore, but they do. But then they changed to a different style of wiring on the later ones, and so it had a different smell.
Wouldn't stop and think that pinball machines or slot machines would smell.
Oh yeah,
It's
like the
interesting.
old slot machines from the 30s, 40s and beyond, they have a distinctive smell too. I don't know what causes that, if
Yeah.
it's the leftover grease from those days or what, but there's just a certain smell I get on my fingers, like, oh yeah, I was working on the...
You know what era that you were working.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? That is funny.
Yeah, people don't stop to think about
Sure.
that.
Well, this has been one fascinating interview. Thank you so much for showing our viewers all of your wonderful
It has a lot to
collections.
cover there.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, there is. Can you open that up just
Oh,
a little
sure,
bit
yeah.
more? And we'll go ahead and we'll close out the
That
show.
was volume 1, and then when you get to volume 11, then everybody will know what's going on.
He thinks so. There's so much involved.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for this beautiful interview, and just thank you for showing our viewers all of this wonderful candy. Thank you so much for watching Psychic Creations, and if you would like to be a guest on my show, you can get a hold of me on my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com. Again, thank you so
Oh, you
much
bet.
for your
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and your beautiful.
Yeah, I hope I
Yes.
just didn't digress too much. It's easy to do on this stuff.
Oh,
You're trying to cover not only a whole period of years, but a whole bunch of different types of equipment.
oh, sure. Well, like you say, we need volume
Yeah, volume.
11.
Yeah.
Thank
And then
you.
about that time, they'd figure it out.
Thank you